Good evening. Um, it's good to see everybody tonight. Way of announcement: if you have not signed up for a fish plate and would like one, then just get a note card, write your name, how many fish plates you're going to need on there, and give it to me by the end. Not by the end. You can wait till the end. The end of tonight's service. This Sunday is graduate recognition. There'll be tables set up where there's usually showers. Um, and so Good evening. It's good to see everybody tonight. Way of announcement: if you That's have how much not delay signed up it is for a between. Fish plate and would like one, That's just in case somebody gets up and goes on a tangent. We've got a chance to bleep it out. No, I'm kidding. Whew, I don't like the way I sound. I'm sorry. So, oh, you're good. So anyway, so if you fish plates, so what we'll do, we'll have our fifth Sunday user driven, to put it in technology terms, but basically congregant led service with there'll be several people that'll be singing specials or playing instruments. There's at least one person I know that's going to be giving a testimony sharing kind of thing, and then we'll have the graduate recognition and the charge to the graduates, and then everybody will leave. You'll get a chance to walk through and talk to the graduates without hugging and shaking hands and all of that stuff. But walk by them. They'll be there at a table. You'll be able to talk to them. And then we'll go outside and go down to the back of the building. And then you'll get a prepackaged meal with fish and fries, coleslaw, a cookie, and a bottle of water. And you can have a packet of lemonade to pour in there if you would like. Or you can have the water, you can drink the lemonade, or you can bring something from the house. It'll all be prepackaged and that kind of thing. And then you can either take it home or you can take it out to the grassy area. It's not supposed to be raining on Sunday, so we can maybe socially distance yet talk to each other out there and hopefully have a good time of fellowship. So that's Sunday, just so that you're aware of what's going on there. Tonight, though, we are going to be in Psalm 37. Psalm 37. This psalm is one that it shares a lot of things with other psalms, and it kind of does a lot of repetition. I don't know if I can hold this up so that you can see it without. Now it's scary. It's like I'm going to sing. Don't worry, I won't. So whenever I was analyzing it, I color coded it and did all kind of color, and it kind of loops back over and goes around on top of itself. If you were going to teach someone to play the piano, what all would you or could you teach them? Okay. Somebody that knows a lot, what can they teach? All right, well, how about this? Here's another quiz. Oh, what? Right? Good. Those are all good things that you can teach. So if you were going to go find middle C, then you could do that a few different ways. You could show them what middle C is. You could tell them middle C. You could also tell them that middle C resonates at 261.63. That's its frequency. Do you know that not only does every note have the notes have a different note, they also for instance, middle C is 261.63. D, which is next door to it, the next white key next door to it, is 293.66. Does that help you out? You could teach them that. Just if you're curious, because I was curious, the bottom note on the piano, the A, is only 27.5. The top note on the piano, which is also a C, is 4,186.01. That's its frequency. I don't know of very many people that play by frequency. I guess the vibrations of the frequency, somebody could theoretically be deaf and still play the piano well if they could know the frequency somehow. But you could teach people the frequency. That's kind of overkill for a lot of people, isn't it? To know what frequency you're playing at. You could also teach them the name of the note. You could teach them the position of the note. You could teach them which finger is supposed to push down the note. You could teach them which keys, which notes are played. For instance, if it's in the key of D and key of A, they have different notes that sound good in it. Have you ever been singing a song and you hear one note and it's like, whew, that does not sound like, not just like it's out of place, it just sounds wrong to be in there anyway. That's because certain keys have different notes that naturally fit better. Teach people what a chord is and what notes go in the chord. You could teach them how to read the staff. You could teach them the finger placement, the notation, how long you're supposed to play it. You could teach them sharps and flats and all of that. And there's a whole lot that you could teach. Everything from what you've got to know, like if you're going to play Mary Had a Little Lamb, you could teach them, like, I don't know if this is right or not, but say C, C, D, E, D, F, G, whatever. That's not right, but you could teach them that. Or you could teach them 261.63 megahertz for 0.37 seconds, and that would be overkill. This psalm, in some ways, is kind of like that. How far do you go at it? How do you approach it in different angles? Rather than just rambling on and on and on about a topic, this psalm is 40 verses long, and really you could summarize it all by just reading the verse 4. But then it keeps talking about it, and it hits at it from different angles, different aspects of what it is. There's times that it contrasts both the good and the wicked, or the righteous and the wicked. There are times where it tells us what to do, when it tells us what not to do. There are times when it explains why when you act a certain way, you're going to get a certain result. There are times of explanation. There are times that it looks at it from God's perspective and people's perspective in all kinds of different ways. Some of it, from a superficial level, is just like teaching somebody C, D, E, D, C, D, E, or whatever that it is to play. But then you can also tune it in to get to even more detail. So tonight, a lot of what we're going to do, it's a lot self-explanatory, and it's a lot consistent with the rest of the Psalm. So rather than y'all listening to me read these 40 verses, we've had several people that volunteered, and at least one that was volunteered to read. So who has Psalm 37, 1 through 6? Read loud. Thank you, sir. So in that, this one is color-coded red, pink, green, and purple. You're like, my Bible is not color-coded like that. So what is the red? The red color-coded, that's do not. That's like the X. Don't do that. And here it talks about one case, well, actually this first verse is about what not to do. Don't be agitated, or don't fret. Don't be hot with anger. Um, and it says basically we are going to face evildoers, and we know that evildoers are going to exist. There are evil people in this world. What is a righteous person supposed to do with the evildoers? Well, one thing we're told not to do, we're not supposed to be to fret over them or be hot with anger over them, not to be agitated, and also not to envy them, because sometimes it seems like the evildoers succeed in the world. But it talks about the wicked. This is one of the fours in verse 2. 4. Why do we not get agitated? Why do we not envy them? Because they're going to wither quickly like grass and wilt like tender green plants. It's springtime, but until recently, there has not been rain, so our grass looked like it was August or September. Because that's just how fragile it is. Even in the springtime, it can wilt under the heat that is there and the lack of moisture. And so that's what it is. Like, look, they might be succeeding in right now, but it will not last. It will fade away. Think about in the New Testament, Jesus affirms it, and some of the epistles talk about how it wilts and how the flowers quickly fade. But then it goes on, and in a contrast, see, it talks about the wicked, but it also talks about the righteous. Trust in the Lord, do what is good. These are the commands. This is red. This is green. I said it green because green means go. Green means do this. We're supposed to trust. We're supposed to do what's good. We're supposed to dwell and live and take delight. We're supposed to commit our ways to the Lord. We're supposed to trust in Him. These are the things that we're supposed to do. At the heart of what it is, a lot of times we come to the Bible for a multitude of different reasons. Sometimes to be encouraged, sometimes to learn, sometimes to know what it is we need to do. And this part of the psalm is telling us what it is we need to do: trust and delight and commit our ways to Him. Now, what do your translations, several other different translations, the end of verse 3, dwell in the land and what? Feed on His faithfulness, enjoy safe pasture, thou shalt be fed, cultivate faithfulness, live securely. Yeah, I like that cultivating faithfulness is the New American Standard. I'm guessing is what you have. That's what I read a lot. And cultivating faithfulness, I like that idea of not just dwelling securely, but actively keeping it more so, investing in ourselves. But it's also about living securely. And the reason why those translations might sound different, sometimes the Hebrew words aren't so much used anymore, and so it's but the idea that behind it there is trusting and doing and dwelling and taking delight in God. And He will give you your heart's desires. This goes back to what we were talking about in John, about how whenever we are in Him, our heart's desires match Him. And the heart was their center of action. That was their consciousness. That was how they decided things. We think about thinking with our brain. They thought about thinking through their heart. And so that was, He will give you what you decide on, what you think through, what is right. All right. Who has the next set of verses, 7 through 11? So that has a lot of the same things. Here, the commands are to rest or to be silent and to wait, to refrain and cease or give up. But it contrasts once again the righteous and the not. Two more times you have that: do not be agitated, or do not fret. From verse 1, do not be agitated. Verse 7, do not be agitated. Verse 8, do not be agitated. It's easy to get agitated with the wicked. It's easy to fret over. It's easy to get caught up in them and what they are either getting or not getting, and it's hard for us sometimes to keep our sight on God. But the wicked, they will be destroyed. The wicked will be no more. The wicked will not be there. And so there's that contrast between the righteous and the not. Because in verse 3, it said they would dwell in the land and live securely. Here in verses 9 and 10, it says they will inherit the land. The humble will inherit the land. So there's the contrast between the good and the not. One that loses whatever place it has in the world. One that will be no more, and one that will inherit, one that receives, one that has hope and a future and a promise. All right, now we're going to transition, and this next section is almost all pink. Pink doesn't really mean anything other than this is a lot of this is going to be turned and directed entirely towards the wicked. Even the couple of times where it says the righteous and the upright, it is just mentioned in passing in contrast. But who has verses 12 through 15? Thank you. So here, the wicked person schemes and gnashes, but it boomerangs. So much so the Psalms talk about boomeranging, about what they are digging out, lashing out. That's what they will get. Here they have drawn sword and bow, um, but instead the swords will pierce themselves and the bows will be broken. So it comes back around to them. Verse 13 says, "The Lord laughs at him." Now, in poetry, there's sometimes metaphorical language. There's times whenever it's an expression that helps us to understand a condition. I don't know if God is literally up there laughing at them. But what do you think this is conveying, that the Lord laughs at the wicked? I remember the first time a kid that we had um, said no, like when they were real little, and I told them to do something. They looked at me and said, "No," and I laughed. I was like, "That's pretty funny. You get that one. Don't do that again." But it's funny sometimes whenever just the absurdity of it. And here, God who knows everything, God who is in control of everything, it is absurd to come before Him. It's absurd the way the wicked choose to live, the goals that they choose to pursue. We laugh at people when we think, why in the world are they doing that? Or they spent how much money on that? Or they did what? But God, of course, sees even more clearly than we do, and so for Him to laugh at them, for Him to see the futility of their ways, and what is going to come back, because once again, um, righteous, all good things; wicked might start off good, but on the downward trek. Um, they say in literature, a comedy is something that starts sad and ends happy, and a tragedy is something that starts happy and ends bad. Well, the wicked are, in that sense, a true tragedy. Regardless of what happens and where they start, we know that it ends in ruin. And so, also the righteous, no matter what bumps and bruises and happen along the way, we know where the end is. So now we have another one that contrasts. It's got a lot more blue in it, which is my color coding for the righteous. Verses 16 through 22. So once again, we have a lot of the same imagery, but the righteous, once again, this time it has, what does the Lord do with the wicked? Laughs at them. What does He do with the righteous? He supports them. He watches over them, the blameless, all their days. So we see the contrast once again between the righteous and the wicked, um, and the imagery there is once again not saying that the righteous will have wealth. It says even a little is better than the abundance of the wicked, uh, because they will be sustained and satisfied in days of hunger, sustained by God. So the next section, verses 23 through 26. This section's all about the righteous, and it all talks about also what God does. He establishes. Some translations might say a person step or a man step. Um, how many different words do we have for man? We have man, boy, gentleman, guy, fella, that kind of thing. Well, they had several different words. Like Ish is Adam. Ish is man. Adam is man. Ga, and this is the one that actually is Gadol. I can't. Anyway, the one that this is a lot of times talks about a strong man. And here a person steps, the strong man, the one that's succeeding, the successful, the one that is in the right place. That person is established by the Lord. And he takes pleasure in his way, meaning the Lord takes pleasure. Well, actually, it could be both, but and God takes pleasure in the way that the righteous man is walking, and the righteous man takes pleasure in God's way also. Though he falls, he will not be overwhelmed. Once again, it doesn't say that health and wealth and prosperity. It says he might fall, but if he does fall, the Lord's hand will still support him. So here the Lord establishes, the Lord takes pleasure, the Lord supports with his hand. And as a narrative note, he starts talking about, I have been young and now I'm old, yet I have not seen the righteous abandoned. And that's going to be important because it's going to kind of come back. I have not seen. As he looks out, as he looks at the righteous, as he looks to consider whether it is good to be righteous or to not, who's going to advance, he says, I have not seen the righteous abandoned. And then he goes on to describe. It's not a command to be generous, to always lend, but he says the righteous person is doing those things. There are several different ways to get people to get students to do things whenever you're teaching. You can either tell them to do something, or you can say, oh, it makes me so happy when you eat your green beans, that kind of thing. Well, you didn't tell them eat your green beans, but you set it up as that's the action that is expected. That's the action that is appreciated. And so here, without telling us to be generous, we understand that if we're righteous, we should be and will be generous. Verses 27 through 34. So there is lots of things that kind of go around, and this one has, I think, every color I coded with, because it has both what God will do. He loves justice. He doesn't abandon. He will not leave the ones, and he will not allow them to be condemned, and he will exalt you in the inherited land. It has ties in with both. It talks about even the children of the wicked will be destroyed. The wicked one, how they act. It talks about how the righteous people act. It talks about, once again, going back to the land. Remember, in verse 9, they will inherit the land. Verse 11, they will inherit the land. Verse 22, they will inherit the land. Verse 29, the righteous will inherit the land. Verse 34, he will exalt you to inherit the land. Once again, there's a permanency, there is a place, there is a home, there is a security in being the righteous that is not there with the wicked, because they will be destroyed. They are all, when the wicked are destroyed, when the children of the wicked will be destroyed. We can see the two different paths that there are on, the comedy and the tragedy, the success and the end, the doom that is there, as it all comes back again. It says, you will watch when the wicked are destroyed. Goes back to what he said. He said, I have been young and now old, and I have not seen. I have not seen. You will see. He's saying you will also see that the wicked will be destroyed. The last section, verses 35 through 40. There's the summation of it all. It starts with the wicked and says, once again, the acts that they do and how it looked like they were successful. They looked like the flourishing native tree, but then destruction came. He was gone. Searched for him, could not be found. Transgressors will be eliminated. The future of the wicked destroyed. It doesn't matter how successful people that are wicked may look today, how good it seems like they have it. We know that God does not miss what it is that they're doing. He doesn't turn a blind eye to those that are humble. He doesn't look and say, well, that's all right. They deserved it anyway. No, he looks and he sees and he cares. He scoffs at the pursuits of the wicked, and he knows that they will come to ultimate doom. But once again, he talks about, I have seen, and then verse 37, watch the blameless and observe the upright. Not just watch them and look at them and learn from them, although that might be part of it. Look what happens with them. For the person of peace will have a future. There's another description of them, a person of peace. The upright, the righteous, the blameless. The These are descriptive words that talk about who a follower of God is, and the salvation of the righteous is from the Lord. It ends then with another description of what God says. The Lord helps and delivers the righteous. He will deliver them from the wicked and will save them because they take refuge in Him. And so at the end of it, he goes full circle, and he goes talks about, you could say, rambles about. You could say that he gets into more detail sometimes than what we are looking for. Maybe we're just looking for a word of encouragement, a surge that reminds us to be righteous, and so that we're recommitting ourselves to be more righteous. Maybe we're looking for how we can do it, and we see that we need to be generous. We need to see that we need to trust and take delight and to commit our ways. But as he goes and talks about all of these different aspects, he does so in a way that really shows us several different angles of what our relationship with God can be. He does it also in an acrostic, which I bring up just because that it is okay for us to have teaching tools. This was an acrostic. We've done it before where we went around and we did I'm taking an apple, a banana, a carrot, a dog, kind of like that. This is like Psalm 119 that goes through and it starts with a different letter. So it was a remembering device as he went through and talked about all of this. It was a teaching tool and a remembrance tool. We need to be cultivating faithfulness. We need to, as we live securely, as we are fed at his table, as our roots are planted deep, not the roots of the wicked that are fixing to be destroyed, but the roots that Psalm 1 talks about are planted by streams of water. As we plant ourselves in him, and as we teach and as we learn, we continue to grow in our faith. We continue to delight in him. We continue to trust in him. We continue to commit our way to him. And in doing so, we know that regardless of what rocky roads we might have now, our future is trending up. Regardless of how it looks like the world might be succeeding and other people are getting ahead, how they're the ones with the nice home, they're the ones with the nice car, they're the ones that seem to be healthy, they're the ones that seem to have it all going for them. We know that apart from the righteousness of God and apart from that relationship with him, they are trending down. And so we know the path that we need to be on. We know the relationship that our life needs to be built upon. And we can follow hard and trust after him. So there's a devotion tonight from Psalm 37. Thank you to everybody that read. It helps a lot, and everybody that shared also. As we go to the Lord in prayer tonight, I didn't do the list thing once again. One, because in 40 verses, how do you summarize? This is one of those where I thought it would be better just for us to have free prayer on through Psalm 37, if that makes sense. So there isn't a prayer guide tonight, but certainly we can always pray through the Psalms just as we take the verses, tumble it over in our head, and then pray in response to either what it's affirming or what it's denying, praying that we wouldn't be like the wicked, that we wouldn't trust in the world, that we would look look forward to heaven and trust in God instead of the ways of the world. So tonight we are going to talk about all of our different prayers before we pray. What are some praise and thanks that you have? Yay! Good. That's good. Oh, yay. I see lots of hands. Go ahead. Excellent. Awesome. Good. Hey, Brother Tim, will you hit stop on the monitor on the left-hand side? That's just so everybody, that's just so if you want to share something with just our congregation, you're not sharing it with the